Hi, welcome to the second of my reviews from this year's London Film Festival. And the second film I want to talk about is Tori and Lokita by Jean and Luc Dardenne. Jean-Pierre and Luc Dardenne, sorry. The two brothers from Belgium. Now, these two filmmakers were hugely important to me round about the end of the 1990s into the 2000s. I thought they were two of the best filmmakers in the world. And what they did was they made social realist films, all set in this town they come from, Seraing, in Belgium. Often with local people as actors. And they're sort of in the Ken Loach tradition, but I thought they were made more beautifully and more intelligently and had a stronger sort of feel for what was actually happening in Europe at the time. Now, there's no denying that they have gone a bit off the boil. Their last two or three movies have not had the power of their previous work. And I think part of that comes down to the fact that now, in the past, the subjects of their films were always people on the poverty line, immigrants, people, on the bread line or the working class, were always as rapacious and as confident as the forces against them. In the last couple of movies, it's arguable that that has changed. So, for example, Tori and Lokita, who are two immigrants who've been smuggled in from Africa, their kind of innocence, it's like a fairy tale, their innocence in a world where everyone is exploiting them, from the people smugglers themselves to the people who, the authorities and police who are wondering whether to give them papers or not, to a local chef who makes them become drug dealers, etc., etc. Right? So they're kind of innocence. And that takes a bit of bite out of the Dardenne brothers' films. And this has led to some people being rather patronising towards the Dardenne brothers and saying that they're not worth it anymore. They turn up at festivals, they get an award, they sod off, and they're not contributing to cinema. But I've got to be honest, I really enjoyed Tori and Lokita. For all its faults, I think it's a really beautiful film because it's like the Dardenne brothers are like the equivalent of Clint Eastwood. They're classic filmmakers. They're not interested in artist obscurantism. They're not interested in formal rigour. What they're interested in is clarity. Clarity, human compassion, telling an intelligent story in an accessible and stark and intelligent way. And we need that. We need the Clint Eastwoods and the Dardenne brothers of this world. We don't all want formal rigour every time we go to the cinema. Sometimes there are good stories to be told in a simple, clear, humane fashion. And that's what Tori and Lokita is. And I like two things about this film that perhaps some people may not like about it. I like the everyday reality of the Dardenne brothers. They look at what actually has to happen to get papers in Belgium. What is the nature of the work they end up doing? So Lokita, who's the main character, ends up working in a cannabis plant, at an illegal cannabis plant. And you actually watch her just go through the business of watering the plants, keeping the temperature up, moving up the lamps. And then the boy, Tori, who's her friend, he tries to find her, and he locates where this factory is. And you actually watch him get into the factory, break in, and go through all the different fans and the superstructure. It's that sort of attention to everyday detail that I like about the Dardenne brothers. You understand the world that these people are in absolutely, no matter how simple and everyday it is. And the second thing I like about the Dardenne brothers is something that was criticised by Peter Bradshaw in The Guardian. He said there's elements of this where it's like an adventure film where the baddie gets knocked on the head with a block of wood, and then they do this kind of, they surf down the side of this gravel pit to get away from the baddies. I don't think that's a problem. I like that. It's like those old children's film foundations of the 70s. It's a children's caper movie, an adventure movie. To entertain the audience while making a social point. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's the joy of the film. So don't write off the Dardenne brothers. This is actually a very enjoyable film. It makes its point well. It's simple and direct, but there's nothing wrong with clarity every so often. I think it's necessary. And I think this is a beautifully judged film.